Hello and welcome to StoryFellas, the podcast where we make stories and we break stories. I'm your host, Tommy Antonucci.
And I'm your host, Zach Lovelace.
And we're doing it
Yep.
like we do every week. And
Every
Zach
week.
has something to tell me. He was keeping me on the edge. We were talking about Palpatine.
Yes, we're talking about Emperor Palpatine. For those uninitiated, Star Wars arch villain. Somehow, Palpatine returned. No,
somehow.
That's how the last movie starts with the scroll.
Dude, I could do a whole hour episode about that.
Oh yeah,
Star Wars movie, man.
We do some break it episodes because we make stories and break stories here. We do some. We'll break that one apart at some point, but.
Yeah.
Just a little primer here. I have come full circle on the prequels. And I know I'm not alone.
Okay.
The prequels are actually low key good. And I don't mean that.
What's changed?
That's such a good question.
They're bad. I never got challenged on that opinion.
No, what's an interesting thing is that I've only seen a few movies twice in the theater. Super 8, Revenge of the Sith, and The Dark Knight. And so it was just before I got into filmmaking. I wasn't old enough to really grasp craft in film.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved Star Wars. And the prequels were my trilogy, right? Like that's what we were so into. We were so into it, man. And we would sword fight, my brother and I, in the woods for hours. We'd hit each other in the hands, Anyway.
Would you make the lightsaber sounds?
I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. We probably just smacked the crap out of each other. But no, we got really into the Star Wars prequels, collecting the action figures and stuff. That was a huge thing for us. And it's a nostalgia trip. I think that's maybe what it is, like 20 years out. Like you just get hardcore. So I got hit with that a couple of weeks ago. And I've just been binging a bunch of Star Wars content, which there's a ton of on YouTube. And there's just people defending the prequels. So I think I've just had the apologetics work on me, and then just reminding me of my childhood where it's like, they weren't that bad. And really the thing is that the Disney ones are terrible. And I watched this one called the Anti-Trilogy. I can't remember the YouTuber's name, but he did a great job of breaking down why each entry in the new trilogy, the sequels, is not Star Wars. And it actually, makes it its point, because it tried to ignore the prequels, even though those were from Lucas. So it's like, it is canon. It is who this guy is. And it had him in it, and he tried to give us something different every movie. So they wouldn't have been like the ones from the 70s and the 80s. So they were just their own thing. And of course they're cornball dialogue, and the pacing's awful, and it's boring from time to time. But we had some of the best sword fights ever, and it is a good story on paper. So there's just good moments, and you go back and, I don't know, looking in the face of what we have now, it's like, no, actually, I just appreciate this more for what it is. Like, it's schlocky, but it's bad in its own way, but it's not as bad as we have now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you raise an interesting point, because there's almost this nostalgic, and maybe, I don't know, it's this nostalgic feeling for an imperfect movie. Because I feel like Marvel came around and they pumped out their Marvel superhero movies, and they were really good. I've kind of fallen off the Marvel train a bit, but for a long time I'd be like, yeah, a few more coming out this year. I'm going to go see them in theaters. Like they're always pretty good. I like them.
They were always a cut above, if you're trying to like take the whole family out or whatever. But I think after honestly, being totally honest, I know Endgame was like obviously the end of phase 1 or whatever. But they had some like burps and hiccups throughout that. Like some of them were not good. And rewatching like the Spider-Man entries versus the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, it's night and day, dude. Like the Tobey Maguire movies are hands down the best Spider-Man movies. They just hold up.
They do hold up.
And I think actually I can boil it down to one word, I think, which is cynicism. I think that Sam Raimi's movies are not cynical. The prequels are not cynical for Star Wars, whereas everything about the sequels is cynical. And even the Marvel movies are cynical. Like they won't even let an emotional beat happen without undercutting it with some sort of joke. Because it's like, yeah, we don't really take those things called emotions seriously, Oh, Aunt May died. Oh, boo-hoo, Anyway, it's just, yeah, it's so cynical about life. And it actually goes back to what we were saying, I think last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, I can't remember, about Smiling Friends.
Yeah, I watched a video essay about how while Smiling Friends is an adult cartoon and it's violent and stuff, it's different than other cartoons like Rick and Morty and some other adult cartoons because it's not super cynical. Like your
Mhm.
core group of characters are fairly supportive of each other, and where a lot of stuff is you have your protagonist filled with cynicism. It's like depressing and they're against each other
Yes.
constantly, which
Yes.
is cool. It's cool to have like your protagonists in a show or movie be like genuinely for people. Not saying that Marvel's not doing that, but yeah, I get what you're
Well,
saying
yeah,
too.
and there's more to it too, because it's not just for people. And I haven't really watched enough of Smiling Friends to say accurately about this, but it's for institutions as well. That like society, as we are all bought more into society. And even with something like Star Wars, it's like the fall of the Jedi Order. It's not a good thing. They actually
Mhm.
bemoan that, like the destruction of democracy, um, in the Revenge of the Sith. It's like that's a bad thing. Nowadays, movies are more focused on undercutting what they think are fake things. So I'll use Fallout for example. I watched the first season of Fallout, and
Mhm.
every character in that show, it's based on the video game property of the same name, but every character in that show becomes disenchanted or or whatever with their stated like positive optimistic goal. So
Hmm.
like the girl is like looking for her dad. Oh, the dad's actually the bad guy. Now she doesn't know what to do. You know, she's alienated from everything now. The
Mhm.
the gunslinger dude was bought into society, and then he saw it fall because he becomes the ghoul mutant dude or whatever. But he becomes cynical and is just killing people. And then the Titan dude or Titus guy, he's part of this like Knight Order. He believes in it, he wants it really badly, and then he becomes disenchanted with it and is like lying to stay a part of it, and then doesn't want anything to do with it. It's just nobody wants to be a part of the institutions that they started with. Nothing is good. None of those institutions are good. And you see that
Hmm.
mapped onto like real world stuff. Like people don't trust the government, people don't trust the church or whatever spheres of authority that we used to have. And yeah, I think that's what people, it's like we had a more trusting, cohesive society because we bought in, we had a collective buy-in on things.
Mhm.
And so you look back and you're like, okay, I can appreciate, because at the time the prequels were compared to other the original movies for Star Wars,
Yeah.
and those were also kind of further up the slope. You know, we were
Mhm.
more of a culture, a unified culture when those came out.
Mhm.
And so I don't know. It's just yeah, I love the prequels. And I loved them as a kid. So it's the nostalgia is a hardcore thing. Like I'm not even trying to be, secret about that. Like that's probably most of it, to be honest. But I watched it and I'm like, no, this was like I really enjoyed this as a kid and it impacted me. And it was that like pre-film version of me, pre kind of like dissecting the craft. It was just fun. Like I just
Mhm.
enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it comes down to I remember we used to both listen to a Writers Room Game Show, which is another podcast.
Hmm.
And I think Seth Worley and
Ryan Pauly.
Ryan Pauly were
Hmm.
talking about like what makes a movie good. I think Ryan Pauly was making this argument because like some people view it as like the technical aspect of a movie. But
Hmm.
he would argue he's like, but did you go to the movie and did you like walk out thinking like, oh, I had a fun time?
Yeah,
Because if you did and you're like, then arguably the movie was good in that sense. Like it accomplished the thing that you
totally.
needed it to. And I kind of adhere to that. There's movies that I really like that if I put them under the magnifying glass, they don't hold up writing wise or
Yeah.
pacing wise. Like there's clear problems with it. The Dark Knight is one. I love The
Yeah.
Dark Knight, but it has some rough writing at certain points. There's
It
like some
does.
weird
It totally
points
does.
that kind of, but to me it's like I can overlook that stuff because I have fun. Like I'm bought in and I have fun
Yeah.
on this journey. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
it's
And that's where the guilty pleasures come in. And maybe that's where they're situated in my mind, is that I know that it's bad, but I enjoy it. Like I know, and the way that Lucas talks about it, because I often find myself, I've been on this trajectory for a while actually, because on YouTube, the making of Phantom Menace, Clone Wars, and Revenge of the Sith are on there, and it's
Mhm.
awesome. It's awesome. It was such a moment. People were so hyped for those movies, and of course, like as they came out, they got less hyped. But there was still like a large portion of people who really enjoyed them, like myself when I was a kid. And
Mhm.
to hear Lucas, his thoughts on things, yeah, he's got like godlike power and nobody's challenging him on things. And he probably should have been checked on. Like the best movie is Empire Strikes Back, and he didn't direct that. And so, yeah, anyway, and I think he didn't write it alone. Lawrence Kasdan helped him write it. So there's all sorts of checks and balances in there. But this idea that Lucas had a love of whimsy and the
Mhm.
way he analyzed things, uh, you don't get that at all. There's not a voice like that. And so I just appreciate being able to like have my childhood like my dad's childhood, where we both grew up with our own Star Wars. I don't think that's going to be the case with these new ones at all. And even I think Marvel is probably going to be that for most kids, like younger Zoomer type
Mhm.
kids.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, I wonder. I think about that too. I know we're talking a lot, folks, in this cold open about movies and nostalgia, but just bear with us because I do wonder: is it because I'm getting older that there seems to be less movies I'm excited about, or is it the times? Like, are there just less caliber
I think it's
movies that?
both.
Because I remember being a kid,
Yeah.
and to be fair, part of that is being a kid and you just love going to the movies, but it felt like there were these powerhouse like Pirates of the Caribbean was a lot of fun to go
Yes.
see. Harry Potter was
Lord of the
very fun to
Rings.
see. Lord of the Rings, like there were all these powerhouse movies that still kind of hold up. I love the first three
Oh, I
Pirates.
was actually thinking about them.
We
They're so good.
we watch Harry Potter. Yeah, it's some of my favorite. Davy Jones's CGI is like
It's cool.
incredible.
Yeah.
I've heard that there was like a lot of overwork on the VFX part, but he looks very good for the
And he's
time.
going
It
to hold
really
up.
holds
Yeah.
up.
He's going to hold up in face
Yeah.
of, you watch him and then you watch a Marvel movie. It's no
Hmm.
contest. Like Davy Jones
Hmm.
looks amazing. So yeah, I
Hmm.
agree. We did have better movies back then. Um,
It
and
sounds
more
like we're
often.
old people. We're like, back in my day, we had very good
Well, they
movies.
were right and we're right too. I think it's just what it is. It's like the movies are getting worse.
I
And
think, yeah,
yeah,
I think
we,
there's something to that because, like, if you watch like an old like movie from the '70s, like, I don't know, sometimes they're just so captivating. The story is so good, and you're like,
yeah.
oh, this seems old, and then you watch it, and you're like, oh, this is
Oh
actually
yeah.
really good. And it's
Oh yeah.
maybe there's just so much content. There's nothing new under the sun. They're making Freaky Friday 2. I always joke with my wife. I'm just like, they're just rebooting everything. Everything's just a
Well,
reboot
it's
or a
been that
sequel.
way. It's been that way for a long time.
Yeah, I
Cecil
know.
B. DeMille was working in the silent era, and he made the Ten Commandments the silent version. Okay, and then he went on to like win Best Picture with the Ten Commandments in the 50s, like
Mm.
full Technicolor and everything. So he was rebooting his own stuff, and you can't really go wrong rebooting Bible story, obviously. But because those are perennial things, they're going to stick around. But you know what I mean? Like, I get it.
Mhm.
This stuff's been rebooted over and over and over again, but it does happen more often now. I think they just want a more surefire ticket, you know. But then I've paid for the same
Yeah.
ticket. I saw Freaky Friday in theater, and I think that's even a remake of an older movie too. Like,
I think, yeah, Freaky Friday, I think was an older, uh, the one that we know was a
yes,
remake of an older one, I believe. But to I like these conversations to wrap it up. I'm gonna just tell the audience like, hey, go to the thing messages. Let us know your guilty pleasures and
yeah,
nostalgic stuff that you love because we all have it. We all have those old movies that we loved and we grew up on, and we want to hear them.
yeah,
So feel free to share
absolutely,
those with us, guys.
agreed.
Zach, do you want to tell a story, man?
Let's tell a story, dude. I got a story in me.
I've got a story in me.
Is that a song? Or you?
Sweet. I need you to pull. I was trying to do. You got a friend in me, but
Oh,
that's a
okay,
bit
okay.
more of a stretch than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll roll on your board. I
Podcast
think.
canceled. Whatever.
Yeah, this podcast is
All
over,
right,
dude.
it's over, man. All right, let's start. Let's roll a couple. We're gonna roll three different dice.
All right,
It's gonna be wonderful. Give me one roll of a D10.
a 10. I rolled a
Give me a
6.
D10. Six. All right, you were rolling for genre,
Oh,
and we're gonna say you got Action.
Nice. Nice. It's a good genre.
Action.
Things are going to happen,
Yeah,
people.
we hope so. It's gonna not a very good action movie. All right, give me another D10.
Another 10. We're going to go with a 1.
A 1?
Yep, a 1. I rolled a 1.
Okay. That is someone apartment sitting learns something that they shouldn't about the person in the apartment.
Ooh,
So
action.
someone
Somebody is
so
doing what they.
someone's a hitman.
Yep, I was gonna say something bad. So they're apartment sitting. So I think the classic thing here would be kind of a farcical, like the person comes to the apartment thinking they are the owner, and they're like demanding them to give them something or whatever, and like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. And are they pretending like they do know them or whatever? And yeah, they end up, kicking off some sort of action thing. Either they fight them or whatever. Yeah, I think giving our main character the ability to fight, I think would be pretty cool. Like they just are.
Yeah, I like that too. I want you to roll one more
Sorry.
D10 for me.
I'm jumping in.
We're gonna add one random requirement to see if we can incorporate it.
All right, I
Let's see how
rolled
that goes.
an 8.
An 8. This is a big bold requirement. So we
Ooh.
can see, we can always ditch it if we don't
Big,
want it. But
bold.
everyone has magic powers in this world.
Oh boy. Okay, interesting. That's actually pretty easy, I feel like. Magic.
Yeah, we could actually this could be a Middle Earth-esque thing or something. We could
that's
put it in
true,
like
yeah.
wacky world. Like it doesn't have to be.
That's true. Apartment makes you think
world.
New York or something, but you could just say like a Hobbit hole or whatever, because you just said Lord of the Rings. But yeah, I mean, I think it's probably easiest to come up with a story unless we want to make it like a world building episode where we put them in a totally different world, right? Like something medieval. That would be hard because you have to like come up with rules and stuff. But something a little more familiar, like a superhero.
Did you ever see the movie Push with Chris Evans?
I haven't, but I know what you're talking about. I was more of
where they all have like
guy.
psychic powers.
You remember Jumper?
Yeah, it's in that same vein as Jumper.
Yeah, I know.
But
Hayden Christensen's like little bump of a career there. Yeah. For those who don't know,
we could do like
movies.
some sort of simple powers or something. Or I think even in Looper, there's the idea that there are certain people who can kind of move things with their mind a little bit.
Oh yeah. Looper had that too. Because what's her face was moving stuff around, and then she kills a guy, right? Doesn't she like blow him up? Or the kid does. That's what it is. Like there's like a little kid.
Yeah, I think that someone in there has like some superpowers. It's been a long time since I've seen Looper.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's just like a simple way if we wanted to add the like there is magic in this world or some level of power.
Yeah.
Without getting into the minutia of like how does this world work?
Agreed.
Like,
yeah.
We could just say like certain people can do certain things.
Yeah.
They have avatar powers, earth, wind, fire, or something like that.
Yeah, you really like your avatar, don't you?
Avatar.
Yeah. I'm kind of the airbender of Storyfellas. I'm kind of like I'm the Aang. I'm the Aang.
I'm the Avatar, the last Aang.
Yeah. Tommy, the last Storyfella.
Cool. So we've got someone who's kind of apartment sitting or house sitting, whatever.
Yeah,
someone is watching a space that is not theirs in theory. This turns into an action situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have some sort of magic power on the back burner, which I think is cool.
Yes.
So where does your mind, these are some of my prompts that I wrote, so I'll let you lead a little bit.
Get my work up a good Zach Lovelace stink here. So
I feel like the basic thing is that the homeowner is a criminal and that's discovered and that opens up a can of worms.
Yeah. Either because if they're a criminal, we can go two ways. They're a criminal and other criminals show up looking for them, or they're a criminal and the authorities show up looking for them. Both show up, or other way around. They are good guys and they have the authorities show up. They have bad guys show up. So Yeah, I really, just because I'm in the mood, man, I want our guy to be able to sword fight. I
All
want
right,
our,
sword fight.
yeah, I
All that
want our main
lightsaber
character.
talk
Yeah,
got you ready for it.
got me all jazzed because I mean, sword fights are so cool. So I'm thinking a sword. If I want him to sword fight, to push it into a more magical type territory, the sword could give you the ability to fight. It could give you other abilities, like you can go through portals, you can cut through time and space and jump through portals or something. Um, we're getting into a really, that's a relic, like that is an artifact type thing, which is cool.
That's
That's not
cool.
a very commonplace weapon. So the
Hmm.
person who is house sitting, I imagine there's like a bumbling uncle kind of guy who's just like doing his thing, and he's like, I'm going down to Vegas, my yearly Vegas trip. Come on down and just watch my farm for a minute. And they're like out in the middle of Illinois, and there's
Hmm.
just corn everywhere, and it's some grandchild of his or cousin or whatever, like some family member, and they're kind of, they find out that he actually is maybe a space warrior of some kind.
Mm. Okay, that's cool. I was gonna say two things I'll throw out there is one, I thought it'd be cool if his sword is sentient, like carpet from Aladdin.
Oh, I like
So
that.
like
Yeah.
it can move and like he can like throw it and it will like move on its own and come back to him.
Like a
That's kind of
boomerang.
cool. Like yeah, kind of a boomerang thing, but I just like it having a personality
Yeah.
too. That's like it doesn't talk per se, but like carpet, like like moves and
Yeah.
bends and
I
stuff.
love that. Maybe when he's
Um,
holding it, it can talk to him telepathically.
Yeah, I like that. Or yeah, or maybe just generally telepathically. Like it can just like it doesn't have a
Yeah.
mouth or anything, but you can hear it. It's like you must use me to kill.
Yeah.
It's like no,
I think I've seen
please.
comics like that before, where it's like, I want to be put inside of a man. And it's like, stab someone now. Uh,
Please.
yeah, I
Uh,
must taste blood. Uh, but yeah, I mean, maybe it's a bloodlusting sword.
I was the other thing I was gonna say, which this might push it a little too far. Let's see what you think about it. Is like, what if this is a world where just sword stuff is the norm?
Mm,
Like guns weren't invented. Everybody uses swords, and like police have better swords and they're more trained with their swords, and civilians like maybe have a sword but they don't really use it that
they're not
much. So
allowed to
they're like, oh,
carry
I
them.
just keep it in my bag or I keep
Yeah,
it on the mantle. But it's like sword fighting and like maybe that's the thing. Like people bond with swords. So they're like, my sword sucks. It's always calling me names.
yeah,
I just keep it in the broom closet or something
that's
like
cool.
that.
I really liked the special thing though, that like he
Yeah.
gets it and he can hear it and he has like a relationship with it. I think that's really cool.
Hmm.
We could make him one of these like non-sword people. So you know what I mean? Like that would be kind of his arc, is that this main character,
Hmm.
which let's set a time period, because I think that could help with a name. I'm thinking like modern day time, but then we have like a crazy world kind of invades our world. He becomes aware of it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I
yeah.
like modern time because I like the idea of him on a smartphone, but sword fighting. Like it's just
Yes,
like that
exactly.
dichotomy of like he's like a
Yes.
sword guy, but it's all modern.
I think that's really
I think
cool.
that's fun.
Um, I have a name for
I
the
like the idea of
sword.
his uncle or whatever.
Oh,
Oh,
go
I want
ahead.
to hear it.
Okay. Okay. So I have a name for the sword. And I don't know why, but Ringrang,
I like that. Can you spell it for me?
just the word ring and then the word rang.
Oh, ring rank.
Yeah, just Ringrang. Um, for whatever reason, it doesn't come etymologically from anything. It just popped in my head after I said the word boomerang and was like, okay, what if it was just rang? Oh, then what about ring rang? That's kind of cool. And I've been sitting on it for 5 minutes.
Ring is cool.
Yeah. So he,
I
he
like it.
finds Ringrang, and
Hmm.
is able to talk to it. And I don't know what its voice is. Is it like a feminine voice? Is it a masculine voice? Um,
I
is it,
think it's.
does he have like a blue
I
collar type
pictured it
thing?
being masculine. I've pictured
Yeah.
it kind of masculine. Because if I picture our protagonist being some dude, some young man,
Yeah. Some young
although that
guy.
could switch, some young guy. But I wonder is the thing that he's house sitting for his uncle? He discovers a sword. People are coming to attack the uncle, and maybe like this uncle was like an
he's a
ex
famous
superhero
warrior
or something like that.
I think he's a famous. I honestly, we punt to him being like a famous space warrior. So he lived a whole life and traveled the cosmos. And we do kind of a Guardians of the Galaxy style, world, but then they just invade Earth. Like they don't have to invade like truly thousands of ships or anything, but they just come looking. And that way you can have like goofy, weird characters who are trying to blend into human society. And yeah, the uncle is just like a retired space pirate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
I like
cool.
that. Yeah, the uncle's in Vegas, and
Yar.
I think
Watch me house. It's like whatever, Uncle Hook. He's got two hooks.
He's like, I can't use the sword no more.
Yeah. Yar.
I'm all hooks.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a man with two hooks for hands and two hooks for feet?
Yeah.
He's
got hooks for feet too. Yeah.
He's got hooks for feet and hooks for a head.
Yeah.
he's dead.
He's dead. He's literally stuffed. Yeah, I think him being a retired space pirate is really cool. And we play up like Treasure Planet. Like we'd play up like pirate. I think.
Okay, so he's like rough around the edges.
Yeah, kind of leaning on what you said about Pirates of the Caribbean. It's really in my mind. And okay, so Ringrang is a famous sword in this space pirate world, and maybe some old associates of Unky, of the uncle.
You
want to name him?
Yeah, I was just brainstorming. I was thinking Mallon, like Mallon.
Okay, Uncle Mallon.
Like Mallon the pirate.
Yeah.
Uncle
and he's
Mallon.
Like the dread pirate. He had a whole thing, but now he's like fat and out of shape. I want to go we're starting to converge here. I want to go full Uncle Iroh. I've said this before where I wanted to see him fight the Fire Lord at the end of Last Airbender. Yeah. For those who don't know, this is deep cut, but it's set up like Uncle Iroh is fat and then he's in prison and he's doing push-ups and he's becoming a good guy and he's realizing he's drifted far from the path of righteousness, and he's a firebender and he's so good at it, and it's his brother who's the evil Fire Lord, and they set up this whole thing, and I just feel like it would have been nice. There might be
some spoilers, guys, so if you're watching Avatar, skip forward
if you're watching Avatar, I mean, it's been out for so long now. Spoiler, your spoiler is spoiled, bro. But anyway, I won't spoil it. The whole thing is just I wish they would have fought, and they don't. So I guess that's kind of spoilery. But
he does get like secretly ripped though, which is really cool because everyone thinks he's a crazy old fat man, and then he like takes off his robes and he's just like gigantic.
Yeah, dude, I wish I could go to prison just for that. Just for the time to get ripped.
just to get in shape.
Just give me some time. All I need is time. And then you throw me in prison. Like a good 5-year sentence, you could come out of prison and just be jacked, dude. Like you'd get buzzed, you'd get a couple tats while you're in there. You become, part of the Aryan guys just for a minute. It was just to survive. Okay. I don't really buy into the whole thing. I need a little bit of, somebody to catch my back in the shower. And then you come out and you're just like everything. It's like the Master Roshi or whatever. He's like the little old man and they just, he's huge.
Yeah. No, I think we should do that with Uncle Mallon. Like he's gone and people are after him. And maybe that's the thing, is that they come for him. They are invading the city and they're trying to take over, but also specifically looking for him. Yes. And they come and he's not there. And there's protagonist, which we'll name in a minute, and Ringrang. And he finds Ringrang. And then they got to get to Vegas or something. I don't know if they got to get to Vegas or he's just defending the city.
Well, I think they were in a farmhouse. I want to keep it really rural. And so just this one alien group shows up, and there can be good aliens too. But I think the whole thing is, I got it, dude. I got it. Uncle Mallon he went off to Vegas to just party and do his thing. And then he gets his nephew, let's call him Steven. Steven shows up and ends up finding Ringrang like in the old barn. And as soon as he picks it up, it sends out a signal. Like he turns it on essentially. Like Uncle Mallon hadn't picked it up in that long. And it attracts both bad guys and some good guys who maybe want some stuff too, right? Like they you owed me a few things back in the day kind of thing. Like, I'm not going to kill you, but Uncle Mallon's wife shows up, his alien wife. that he ditched.
That's fun.
And she ages at a different time. So it's like she's this cat lady. I'm pulling heavy from Treasure Planet, but the cat lady shows up. I don't know what her name is. We'll figure it out.
Captain Arrow, I think.
Oh, like in the...
Is that right?
I don't know. You're
wait,
the Treasure
on.
Planet guy. I know. Actually, I really love.
I actually just listened to a movie review about Treasure Planet.
That sounds right. I was going to say what is our character's name? Not, but you can use that as inspiration if you want.
Captain Amelia.
Amelia
is
yeah.
Captain Amelia.
Yeah.
This cast for Treasure Planet? Sorry, it's like
it's stacked.
It's stacked. There's Emma Thompson as Captain Amelia. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is the main Jim Hawkins guy. Martin Short is the robot. There's like a lot of good talent in this
Centroid
movie.
of the Mechanism. Centroid of the Mechanism.
Did you? Yeah. I also learned in this podcast. I'll shout it. It was I think I was listening to the Lion and Mouse podcast, which they were reviewing this. So shout out to them. They review movies. You can check them out. I learned from their trivia, unless they lied to me, that Treasure Planet was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, like 2D animated flops.
Yes.
That Disney ever did. Because it was like one of the, if I'm getting the time frame right, it was kind of near the last of that 2D animation.
It's a blend,
era.
Actually. They did a lot of computer generated stuff. Another great making of, which I think is on YouTube. But
nice.
I grew up on Treasure Planet. I love it.
It's a great movie. So, but yeah, cat lady.
She shows up. Yeah, that's Aunt something, right?
Aunt Amelia.
Amelia's too on the nose.
Arrow or Eros or something.
Eros is just love. I mean, maybe Era
on the nose. Era.
Yeah,
like
that's kind of cool.
ERA.
Yeah, that's cool. Get a little
Era the cat lady. Put it in my notes.
Yeah, please, because we're not going to remember this stuff when it comes time to write the log line. But so yeah, Aunt Era shows up, and she doesn't know anything about Steven and like the human world or whatever. So I like the idea that he falls in love with his aunt, who's also a cat lady.
Oh, Steven falls in love with Era.
Yeah.
Does she know that they were like old? Oh, okay. So like she's like seemingly his age.
Yeah. Because she doesn't age as fast. And she's like, oh, I thought, because I guess that clocks his disappearance for about 30 years, which is probably Steven's whole life. Right. Like, Uncle Mallon is 60 something and he disappeared. He made it back to Earth essentially. And so yeah, he has this farm and nobody really knows how he makes his money. He has some sort of gold or whatever. I don't know. But Era shows up. I think Era shows up after the main bad guy group, which is just a posse of space pirates. And we can model them like directly after Barbossa from Pirates of the Caribbean. You just get some big bad guy. And
a mixture of them and Treasure Planet, just those kind of
totally. We're taking the Pirates of the Caribbean guys into space and then back to Earth. And Uncle Mallon is very like, he'll come in at the end and like be able to fight, I think is the really cool part. But so I think the plot is pretty obvious now, where you just have, he finds Ringrang. Ringrang talks to him too. And it's like, oh, Mallon, it's been so long. Or like, you're not Mallon. And he drops the sword and he's like, what, wait a minute. He thinks someone's talking to him. Right. And he drops it. And that's a whole cool scene where he's like in the barn. I think Ringrang can cut through anything is probably the, it's not a lightsaber, but it just, since it's a sentient being, you have to negotiate with it.
Yeah. I think I have a personality idea for Ringrang, because I think Ringrang would be funny if he's kind of British and a little snobby.
So you want Hugh Grant? You want Hugh Grant from the new Wonka movie?
That's exactly who I want.
The Oompa Loompa.
Something like, the computer from Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yes, that's a good. I love that. Was yes, we're all over the references today, man. Like,
it's like, I wasn't even sure if we'd be able to do this with Mallon.
Yes.
You really think we're going to accomplish this with you, Steven?
Yeah.
Like, just really critical of him and pessimistic.
And maybe that's why Mallon was like, I got tired of him, and he knew that he would.
Yeah, He's like, that's why I put him in the barn.
Yeah.
It's like one thing if we're working together, but if he's not stabbing someone, he gets tired.
Yeah.
He gets cranky.
Yeah. And he wants to be, he's like,
I also
give me to someone else. Please, please, just give me to someone else. You fat slob.
Like, he's like, you cut through anything. I'm not going to give you to someone else.
Yeah. You've been using me to cut toast for 10 years.
I have another scene that doesn't happen till the end, but I do really like it because I like the idea, and we'll see how you feel about this, that Mallon comes back, or I don't know if they go to Mallon or he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
It would be funny B story if he's like looking at the news. It's like space pirates invading. The Midwest, and he's like, oh, and it's just like him trying to get on a plane and try to get back.
That would be funny. He's just like fat dude, like trying to old dude trying to get back home.
Part of me likes the idea that he's this kind of hunched over fat dude, and he gets there, and like one of the pirates are like, it's you made it back just in time, Alan, like stabs him, and like, but then the sword gets stuck, and they realize like that all the fat is stone, and it's like, oh, you think I let myself go? And he like takes off his shirt, and it's all like weighted, and he like takes it off, and we have the Uncle Iroh thing.
That's awesome.
He's just like chiseled, and he's his fat is just like weights that he's constantly wearing to keep himself in shape.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, and he just like punches pulverizes this dude.
Dude, I love that. I love it.
He's like, the thing is, I don't need Ringrang to beat you. And then he just sheds his armor.
Yeah, dude, yeah.
Because then I think that'd be super cool for Steven too. He's like, Mallon, no. And he's like, wait, what? You've not been fat this whole time?
Yeah, you've been fat my whole life.
But
never
I think
seen
that
me
just
shirtless, boy.
It's like he always did wear a shirt to the pool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could even like, I don't know. I think you could find other really clever ways to do that too. Like he's just wearing a bodysuit that looks like that, that's weighted or whatever, which would just be like such a cartoonish thing to do, where he just like unzips his fat and it's just like, actually, he's like super hot. And Hera falls back in love with him. That's the Mallon I know.
And they just start making out right there. And
yeah.
And Steven's like, oh.
And she's been leading him on. She's been leading Steven on the whole time. Yeah, she's just got, she's humanoid, she's not like on four legs. She's a cat lady.
Yeah.
I don't need to oversell it, whatever. But yeah, I'm working on some lines in my head where she says something like, like something about like the better man being inside of him the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you let the better man disappear or whatever. And then it's like at the end, he ends up doing that. And she sees it. It's like, he's been inside of you all along. Or maybe he says that, or he's like, yeah, he's been inside of me the whole time. I haven't gone anywhere.
I think that's a fun like, I feel like this is a fun build up because I can totally picture this. You've got Steven, and at that point, like he's through this journey, he's learning how to use Ringrang. Like Ringrang has to teach him how to be a swordsman.
Yes.
Which is interesting to me because, and maybe Era, I don't know if we have more people come in.
Well, they definitely have
to go. Era knows some sword stuff, and then she's teaching Ringrang, and her are trying to teach Steven how to do this sword stuff. I like that a lot. Ringrang's like, I can carry most of your weight, but I can't. That almost is Australian. I can carry most of your weight, sir, but I can't do everything. You're gonna have to learn something. And then just building up to this scene where like all the bad pirates are there, like on the farm. Yeah. And it's the three of them, or four if you count Ringrang, taking out all of these pirates.
I think keeping it really contained and then really selling like a bigger world on the other side of it could be cool. Where, it is, I guess, it's essentially Guardians of the Galaxy. You could, but I don't want Steven to be a Chris Pratt like guy. No. If we're looking at our cast of characters from something like D&D, the Dungeons and Dragons movie, him being more of the magician guy, like more of a loser, not self-confident kind of thing, and then he becomes confident and But yeah, there's probably a gang of like 5 to 6 guys that show up. Main bad guy's named something like Burke. I like the idea that each one is made out of some sort of other material. You know, they're aliens that are like there's a brick kind that's Burke. You can see what I'm doing here in my head. And then there's like metal ones, like a skinny, like kind of like super raily looking guy, you know, and like his arms are literally swords or something. But they want.
It makes me think of the Titans from Hercules.
Yeah, I imagine the Frost guy, but he's made out of metal, and he's just like,
yeah,
he's all pointy and everything. And yeah, they're just like little mercenary guys. It made me think of that moment from Men in Black 2. Have you seen Men in Black 2?
Yeah,
he's a Balchinian. So we're not going to have a Balchinian, but there is the one other guy in that scene where he's like, now that guy just looks like a turd. And he's like, the dude like literally looks like a piece of poop. And he's just like, looks like a payday, you know, like candy bar. Just anyway, I imagine a guy like that too.
That's good.
And they can just like have a goofy, they don't have to be super high tech aliens, I think is what it is. Like,
yeah,
that they have to like hitchhike to get around. And maybe Burke is more humanoid or human, you know, and he was Mallon's partner back in the day. And he ended up killing someone or whatever, was trying to get a hold of Ringrang. But I think Ringrang, is it just valuable? Like it's not universe ending in any way. It's not like the most important thing in the world, like, or in the universe. It's just rare.
It's rare. It's the sentient sword. Maybe it's the last of its kind. Maybe there was a species of sentient swords or something.
Or maybe the species became the swords. Like that's
something like that.
Got melted down.
But they're really powerful. Not like world-ending powerful, but powerful, valuable. I think part of them being there is one, revenge on Mallon. Two, to get Ringrang, because they're like, if we could have had Ringrang, Mallon would have been history. We would have. I was gonna say maybe Ringrang. This is getting a little too Treasure Planet-y, like is also a key to something, but I feel like that makes the world too big.
I think that's real second movie territory.
Yeah, that's what I would think. Like it'd be like a second or trilogy kind of level if Ringrang was a key to something, but I don't think there's enough room in one movie to make that happen.
The ultra ability that makes Ringrang really rare is that we do the portal jumping thing, that he can cut through time and space and you can walk through, so you can just easily get around, which is cool because then it puts out a signal to be found. So that's why picking it up, you know, there's something to be said about that, like location time thing. And so it takes them a while to get there. But when they do.
Oh, so just having the sword send out a beacon? Like, are they just, the species of sword is just really easily detectable?
I think so.
However, the trade-off is that you can just travel anywhere instantaneously.
Yeah.
So it's
I think that's a cool, exactly. Like someone's always going to try and get you. And
that's actually really cool. And that's the reason, like Ringrang's like, you have to cut the portal open. Like we can't stay in one place.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm swinging it as hard as I can. He's like, it's not about how hard you can swing it. It's about tact, how you swing the sword.
Yeah. Finesse.
And then, it's like, you got to open a portal to Vegas. We need to go to Vegas now.
That's cool.
Maybe
they do.
They can't do it.
Or maybe he can't do
it.
Either way, he's like forced to confront whatever the problem is. But he fights Burke. I think Burke and Mallon fight at the end. And maybe it's actually Era that kills Burke at the end. I do really like playing. Do we hold the like, hey, I'm your aunt, like to the very end? So Steven is falling in love with Era the whole time. No, that's why she would show up. She'd show up because she was mad at him. Like she's like, oh, I've been waiting to see this signal. Like he ditched me, and on some sort of planet, and I've just now been able to see this signal. So I knew immediately to come here, and I was gonna kill him myself. Out of love. That kind of quibbling lovers thing. Yeah.
So are you saying but do you think it'd be too obvious if she's speaking how she's speaking that they were an item?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think I talked myself out of it where I'm like, oh, okay, no, she actually would just tell him. And then he's kind of against his better judgment. Steven is falling for her.
I was wondering if we wanted to introduce a different girl or alien girl or
We
Earth
could.
girl that because it I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at my story circle here of what does Steven do? Like what is his need? How does he change as a person?
Yeah.
Um
Knowing what we
because I don't want to pull the rug. He's like, oh, like finds this love and then it's like pulled the rug. That is funny, but it's like how what does early Steven look different from in Steven besides just being better at sword fighting?
Yeah, I that's a good point. I think defending himself, taking himself seriously. I could hear Uncle Mallon in the beginning saying something to the effect of like, he's like, I've got 15 nephews, but I chose you because you're the most ladylike. I knew that you would take care of the house well. You have the air of a homemaker about you. I don't know why Mallon sounds like that, but he's he would say something to that effect though, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's a wimp, and he's like, you're suited for. Look at your hands, boy. You're suited for taking care of house plants. He tells him that. And he's just like, yeah, I guess. And he like spills the water as he's trying to take care of these house plants. He grows into his strength. So I don't think it's like remasculator, which is a term that we throw out a lot. He's not like lost it. I think he's just, it's like, what is it? Kind of coming of age, man child to man type story. We could even go like that young too, where like he is like 18, 19 watching the farm. I think that's actually kind of cool. A little bit younger and maybe he was in college for something. And we can give him some sort of like devastating backstory where he like got thrown out of college for some reason that could be related to the main thing. So that's why he's available to even do the go on the adventure, right?
We could give him some sort of love interest then, like a barista or something that he likes that he never talks to. That when he's being pursued by pirates, he runs and hides in the coffee shop, and she's like, "Can I help you?" And then they barge in, and he has to like protect her, and then she kind of gets carried away into this adventure. I think that could kind of be fun.
That's cool. I like that a lot. There's some sort of gag there where he like runs in and like he orders a drink. I don't know why he would order it, but like he's a regular. So she like puts his name on the drink and then they're coming in and they're looking like, oh, he must not be in here. And then they see
and
that
she calls
his name. Yeah.
Steven.
Steven, just a thing that you could set up and then that's a payoff later on. Like he's a regular, whatever. And
that's funny.
I like the idea that Ringrang can come out. Like that he's invisible. Do you know what I mean? That's a little bit of lore stuff, but that he could like throw his arm down. And it's like shing, it comes out. And it's not like part of his arm, but it's just like, he's attached himself to him. And maybe when he's talking to the girl, he's like going into hiding mode or whatever. And it's like goes up on his arm and it's just like invisible energy. He's still there. He's just invisible.
That could be cool. Yeah. I know that I listened to this one podcast, The Adventure Zone, and there was a character that had a sword that would disguise as a belt. Like it was a belt, and then like they would whip the belt and it would like extend and like harden and like it become a sword. So I like the idea. It could be invisible, but it's also cool if it's like a thing, like a thing on his
disguised
person
as a thing.
It's a tie.
Or maybe
why are you wearing a tie over a t-shirt?
Yeah, we're getting into some deeper, like maybe too many powers for Ringrang, but like this idea that to normal people, he can take a disguise of some sort of normal. He's like, what do you want me to be? Like, he's like, I can't just walk around looking like a sword, like I'm holding a sword. And he's like, all right, well, what form do you wish me to take? Like, I can make myself look like something else. And he's just a golf club. Like, I think just a golf club. He's just running around, which could still kind of be a weapon, I guess. But do you know what I mean? Like that way it's like everyone's always, what are you doing with a golf club? Which I kind of like because we tied in that finesse thing. He's like, oh, a tool of finesse. He's like, oh, I know golf clubs.
He turns into a gun. And he's like, no, like something. He turns into like he can only turn into weapons. He's like, I can't carry around weapons. Although I do like the idea of him having to carry around a big sword because I agree. It's funny because with how dangerous a sword is, I could see like neighborhood bullies that pick on him. They're like, why are you walking around with a sword, you dweeb?
Yeah.
Like, like it's like He's like, and the Ringrang, like, I don't know, like the hilt of it like flies into the bully's face or something.
Ka-ching! Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Oh,
That he does not change. Like I think his power is the teleportation thing. And so he tells him,
yeah.
and maybe there's even like, I want to let you go, but you're not, like, I'm holding on to you, Steven. It's like he can't let it down. He
Mm.
can't let it go. I think
Mm.
that's kind of interesting.
Oh, that's cool. That's actually really interesting if he's like, without a person, I'm just stuck in that barn.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
I'm going to hang on to
So the first
you.
like 10
They're
minutes
good.
again is him fighting with the sword,
Stephen,
obviously.
to Stephen, to get me out of your hands, they will have to cut your arm off. And he's
Yeah.
like, no, just like
And
let me
he
put you
turns and
down.
he
He's like,
sees a picture of Mallon and he has this one hook. He's just like, oh boy. That's how Mallon was able to get him off of him. That's
Mhm.
actually really interesting, is that Mallon cut off his own hand to get
to
Ringrang
let
off of
go.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a clingy sword. He's
Yeah, I
one
like that.
clingy sword.
More like cling clang.
I
Um,
like the idea of this dialogue where he's like, "Can you like disguise yourself?" He's like, "Disguise myself." It's like, yeah, like in Thor, he turns his hammer into an umbrella, something
yeah.
inconspicuous. He's like, "I can teleport through space and time. Why would I need to hide?
Yeah.
Like you can go anywhere. Like why would you need to
I
hide me?"
like
He's
that.
like,
I think Ringrang is very fleshed out, like tone and everything. Again,
yeah,
second, third movies, we kind of pull him out to be more of a thing, kind of like Vision. It's like Jarvis.
yeah,
That's actually almost exactly what it is.
yeah.
A useful
Except more
tool.
negative and like snarky a little
It's
bit.
more like Jarvis and Venom combined.
Hmm.
You
That's
know,
interesting.
so
Yeah.
it's in good company, which is cool.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I
maybe
feel
in the
like
sequels they get Ring Ring out of the sword and he becomes like what he used to
that's my
be,
point.
but
It's
then the
like, yeah,
sword is still
that
separate.
race got turned into swords. I also think Ring falling in love with another sword could be really cool, like the sword of the enemy, so they don't want to fight.
That's actually really like again, this feels like a movie too. Like
Yes.
it's the sequel. This would happen. I love the visual of like they meet someone who has like a female version of the sword.
Yeah.
Um, and then like the two of them like are fighting too, and then they both like swing and they both like
Yeah.
freeze midair, and the swords are like they're like, come on, we're in the middle of a fight, and they're like, um, I don't wanna hurt her,
Yeah.
and then they just have to like,
I think that's really cool that they were like husband and wife aliens, and they were like
mm,
a metalloid type alien. And they get taken over by this other race. This is eons ago, right? And they get melted down into these swords, which is kind of cool, kind of
mm,
terrible. But that's something that you learn more about later down the line. But the only one that can destroy a sword can only be destroyed by another sword. So
mm,
like it is the husband and wife thing. But maybe they overpower the wife. Then they kind of like they break her a little bit so that it can destroy him. And he's like, no,
mhm.
Ring Ring is, or maybe it's Ring Ring that has to destroy her. It's like there's that dilemma there where it's like, well, if we don't do this, then whatever. I love that. That's actually really unique. And that's a
Yeah,
kind of a keeper. Not gonna lie. A lot of these stories, they feel cool to just throw out there into the ether, but this one's a keeper. This one is, I'm kind of into it. Um,
the ring ring
yeah,
thing.
yeah, the Ring Ring Chronicles, or Chronicles is a word that's so overdone, I feel like, but yeah, the Ring Ring something or other. Um,
I feel like the ring ring is cool. The Ring Ring Chronicles is actually really cool because it's very unique.
yeah,
Um,
and the
I
sentient
like it.
sword and
I like it.
everything. Oh man, yeah. So you guys listening, obviously, we opened up on like a 15-minute diatribe about Star Wars prequels. So if you're still listening, this kind of story feels really familiar. Like they beat these bad guys, they kill them in some other fashion or whatever. Malin then further initiates Steven into the space piratey life. And he's like, well, I guess I'm out of retirement now. And so now we have our kooky captain. We have Era, who has a little bit of a thing for Steven, that had been brewing the whole time. Or we said the barista thing. Um, I don't know, I'm pulling it into a trilogy type thing where it's like first movie, it's like, oh yeah, I'm your aunt kid. And then it's like, actually like I'm like kind of into you, you know? I don't know why I'm shipping the cat lady thing so hard. Um, I'm just drinking
Really
water
says a lot
tonight,
about
people.
you.
I'm just drinking water tonight. But it's really interesting. And yeah, I don't know. Mallon being like actually young and virile, he's like, oh yeah, I have space technology that has kept me alive longer,
Hmm.
and like made me, my strength is still, I'm virile. And we can pull in all
Yep.
sorts of other cool like space piratey guys. Again, going really blending the kind of old tech space world.
Hmm.
OG Star Wars a little bit, where it's like this is space truckery kind of territory. That's not, they're not perfect. It's not, the Marvel universe that we just need it to really work and be polished and we can jump around and do all sorts of things. That
Hmm.
everything has a cost to it, I think it's all beaten in and it's got a cost to it. That's great. Um,
I
so
like it.
yeah,
I like it,
they
man.
beat Burke and the gang, and kind of tease the bigger world where Mallon, I'm assuming at the end, it's like, you know, underneath my farm is actually my ship, and he does like a
Hmm.
thing like underground, and it just ends with that. And maybe they need to go do something. I'm wondering what that would be. What would be the final
That
call? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the one thing I feel like I like this story for. This definitely feels like a bigger story, like a trilogy. But for the first one, what is the thing at the end that brings? They're like, we got to go searching for so and so, whatever. Like the thing
Mm-hmm.
that he was the key, or maybe they find it out from the pirates. They're like, we've been looking for the sword because it's not just a sword, and like
Mm,
they kind of spill the beans, or some lackey spills the beans of what they're trying to do, and then that gets Malin interested, and they're like, oh, if there's a treasure out there that we own the sword
yeah.
that can open the door, then we should go see it. And then you've got this little crew of um the four of them if you count Ringrang,
Yeah.
and maybe the fifth if we decided on
I think
Barista. I
so.
think
I
we'd have
think
to.
so. We'd have some sort of critter or something, or even another being. Um,
Mhm.
I think what you do is you tease Ring Rang's wife, and you
Mm.
say like, "Oh, together they're a key. Whatever the key unlocks." Um, I don't know. I'm trying not to go full Thanos. Like the entire universe is at stake. It's just keep
Mhm.
it small, keep it bounty, keep it treasure island. It's just an island that had treasure on it. It's not like it's that important necessarily, but it's life changing.
Yeah,
Um,
I
so
think that's enough motivation, especially for these pirate, like Malin and Era seem there of pirate blood, and maybe that's the thing. Steven has this. They kind of allude to that in Pirates of the Caribbean, where Jack is talking to Will, and he's like, "You're completely obsessed with treasure. Like
mhm.
you have pirate blood in you." And maybe that's something that
Yeah,
is like
yeah, I think
you're
that's
always
what
staring at
Steven's.
those shiny things.
Yeah, Steven's arc has always been to be an adventurer, and maybe that's he's
Hmm.
been disenchanted with life. Maybe that's what it is. He never went to college. He was just burnt out, like loser kind of thing. And he's like, life has never offered me anything more interesting than a 9 to 5 or whatever. It'd be
Hmm.
really funny if he worked at like a Hobby Lobby or something and had a really mean manager, and that guy gets killed by by Burke. Like they show up and he's just like, he's somehow made it back to work and he's trying to hide there or whatever. Um, I think that would, you get a little taste of these scenes, folks, but
Hmm.
that would be his arc, is that he's actually becoming an adventurer. He was a daydreamer before, and now he's like, okay, I'm actually doing it. And just learning the ins and outs of being a space pirate, I think would be, or a space buckler.
A
Um,
space buckler.
yeah. You're a
Nice.
space buckler. Um,
Well, I like it, man. I feel like we need a title for this first movie.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, or it could just be the Ring Ring Chronicles. Insert other title.
Yeah.
The Ring Ring Chronicles. Living
I'm,
it up in Vegas.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
He's Vegas.
I could see a whole ad campaign. There, what's in your wallet? Um, let's see. There's some good.
What about the Ringrang Chronicles, The Missing Blade?
That sounds like the second one. That sounds like, because that would be.
I guess that's the second one. But I was thinking Ringrang was the missing blade. Like he's the thing that's been gone for like 30 years.
No, I think that's just like, it's just whatever the first one is. It's just, Ringrang is the first one, and then the second one is Ringrang, the Ringrang Chronicles.
Ringrang Origins.
Yeah. Ringrang First Class.
Ringrang 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. It's yeah. Anyway, I'm not entirely sold on the Chronicles thing.
Yeah.
But I do like something to that effect. Like even adventure, like that way it's not the Chronicles. I guess that's kind of an adventure thing. That's more of like what's happened in the past.
Yeah. I think this could definitely just be Ringrang. I love a big title, but I miss the days of just sequels being 2 and 3 and 4, because
oh, totally. I agree.
I don't know which way the Transformers movies, I don't know the order of them because there's a new title every single time.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, you get to the point where, you actually lose track of it a little bit. Fast and the Furious, like how many more Furiouser, more fast, Furiosa,
more fast.
Like Fast and Furiosa. I'm lost. So yeah, I do think like Ringrang 1, Ringrang 2, Ringrang 3. That gets kind of tiresome, actually.
The actual title of the first one is called Ringrang 1. Just like the one is
that's fair.
behind it.
That's fair. Ringrang, and then it would be then it'd be Ringrang 2. I don't know. Ringrang Part 2, probably.
Yeah. Did you notice that John Wick? Have you watched the John Wicks?
Just the first one.
There's like John Wick 1, 2, and then there's John Wick, and then John Wick Chapter 2, and then John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, and then John Wick Chapter 4. It's like just the Chapter 3, they added an extra little name to it.
Huh. Yeah, I do remember that. Weird. I do remember that. My dad was watching that one, Parabellum. It's such a dad movie, dad franchise, but yeah, Ringrang Chapter 1. I guess it would be Ringrang.
It's just Ringrang.
Yeah.
It's just Ringrang. It's done. Stamped. Approved. Ringrang.
Yeah.
Now we just need a line to close this sucker out.
Okay. I do think we need to zero in on Steven's arc and something about him coming full circle. So that moment at the end where they've beaten, he uses Ringrang and he uses him in perfect finesse. Maybe something that Ringrang says to him, And yeah, like the whole time it's like him learning to not just swing the sword. You don't just swing me. You swash me.
You're a swashbuckler.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like actually opposed to that. It's kind of funny, obviously, but it's like, you don't swing, you swash. And yeah, it's like, what does that even mean? And then he finally figures out what it means.
What is a swash?
It's like, swash? Right when he opens up a portal, I think would be he successfully does it, and is able to escape or whatever. Okay. So I actually think that our line can be a setup or a payoff to a setup that we said earlier. The setup being the moment where Mallon he's introducing Steven to his house, and he's like, "Look at your hands, boy. You got hands that are good for doing one thing, and that's taking care of houseplants." And he doesn't believe in him at all, right? That's kind of the thing. He's this loser guy that has a loser job and everything. But finally, at the end, when he has defeated Burke and he's holding Ringrang, and Ringrang, is covered in blood, and not in like a gruesome way. I think that should be said, but he's battle worn kind of thing, and as well as Steven's hands and knuckles are beat up a little bit, and Mallon grabs his hands and he turns it over and he holds it up and he's like, "These hands are the hands of a warrior."
Thank you all for listening to StoryFellas, a part of the Pemmican Studios podcast network. Check out our show notes for bonus material, links, and more. To find out more about our current projects, send us messages, and suggest ideas for the show, go to StoryFellasPodcast.com. If you liked what you heard, share the show with a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to grow this community. Until next time, go make and break those stories.